But Phil, I know you've told a lot of these stories a million times, but there's a lot of people here that haven't heard them before. And we're obviously going to go back over your cycling career. And we'll try and make a few variations this time, but there's my favourite story, you've got to tell that one. But for those of you who don't know the background of where you started, Phil, just a member of, went out to Cube Boulevard before that Looney started chucking tacks on the road and watched the race.
Yeah, so I started relatively late for a lot of cyclists, champions that you see on the road out there now, but I started at the age of 16. Yeah, saw a bike, grew up in Melbourne. People think I'm a country boy, but grew up in Melbourne and saw a bike race down at Cube Boulevard, which inspired me. And I asked the one of the stewards of the corner, what's going on here? And he said, there's a bike race here. It's a criterium. It's a circuit race. It's around the Teardrop where they still race now. He said, there's clubs all over Melbourne. In fact, there's a Hawthorn club, and they have meetings there, and maybe consider joining up the club and you race like this too. So I didn't have any family, didn't know anybody that was racing. Never heard of Eddie Merckx or the Tour de France or anything like that. So joined up to the Hawthorn club and just started doing the road in the beginning, and the track. We always used to ride. Anybody in our club always used to ride the road in the winter and the track in the summer. And this is back in the mid '70s. And back then there was quite a segregation between amateurs and pros. Amateurs, of course, could ride the Olympics and the Com Games, and the pros could riders who were a lot better than me, and started getting the gist of the cycling business. And got, as I said, on the state team or the Australian team. Eventually, got to represent the country. Went to the games.
What's your first bike? Sorry, I just want to jump
in. First bike.
Fascinated by their bikes now, but where did you get it? Probably from
my first bike was actually a Hallmark, which was just a sort of, like a Kmart bike. It was, literally. Now it'd be $100, but back then it was possibly $50 bike.
That's one step up from an Aldi bike.
Aldi bike, exactly. Like the Great Victorian Bike Ride bike, kind of like that. That was virtually my first race. But then once I started, mingling with some of my club mates, they thought that, I'd be worthy of some decent parts. Back then everybody used to, guys would be retiring and, here's a set of wheels and here's some brakes and, bits and pieces. Back then...
How many gears?
10 gears. That's five on the back.
And 7 on the back,
yeah, so a lot different than now. And you couldn't go into a shop and buy a whole bike back then. The bikes, the frames would all be handmade. They'd all be made. In Melbourne, they had, there's possibly half a dozen reputable frame builders. And they were all craftsmen, almost like blacksmiths. You'd go into their workshop and they'd have the big anvil, and they'd have, they'd actually, they'd have a jig on the table. You'd sit down and have a conversation with them, a bit like
A bit like Cannondale today.
A bit like, off the hook. But a bit like Baum down there in Geelong. You'd basically go in, now you call them an interview, but back then you just have a chat with the frame builder, and he was a real artisan. And you'd talk about what you want to do. You want to have it as a training bike, or you want to do criteriums, or obviously a track bike or whatever. And you'd suggest, we'll use Reynolds 531 or 7, whatever it is, or sort of tangy tubing for a track bike or whatever. And what sort of lugs would you want? Now they're all sort of bound together with carbon, but back then they used to have lugs which would join the tubes together, steel of course. You'd have fancy ones with scrolls and all sorts of things, or you had plain ones. And and you'd go back like 3 or 4 days later and have the frame up on the jig, and and it was just fantastic. So different than what it is now. And eventually, I turned pro obviously a few years later, and the top teams also did that. They were all handmade frames, and quite a bit different than now. But
so you raced Com Games?
Racecom Games, that's right. Moving ahead, so yeah, one, yeah, that was the road race in Edmonton in '78. And when I returned to Australia, I had an invitation to join a club in Paris, an athletic club. You know, they had obviously a cycling part of the club, but you know, so this is all before AIS, and you know, now there's all sorts of different pathways you can take. But back then there weren't too many opportunities. So you know, the break for me was to have you know, a guy here in Melbourne that was you know, involved with the Hawthorn Club. He had a mate in Paris that ran was the director of an amateur club, a cycling amateur club in Paris. So for me, that was a big break, getting over there. And you know, I thought that was maybe a pathway to do the Olympics, because you know, I was a true blue amateur. I never had any aspirations to become a pro. I didn't even know what the Tour de France was, or you know, what you know, professionals were, because in Australia, you know, it was nothing particularly other than, you know, maybe getting some small cash. You know, I never really knew there was a profession of the sport until I got over there. So anyway, I did really well as an amateur, won a heap of races in, you know, in the club in Paris, and we raced all over France, but, you know, I won the sort of annual aggregate in France as an amateur, and had a couple of pro teams approach me, and after seeing that there is other races than, you know, the Sun Tour and the Warrnambool, I saw there was, you know, there was a future, you know, as a professional. So through caution of the wind, which meant I had to throw away any chance of going to the Olympics at that stage, and yes, I turned pro. So that was.
So you should have been a rower, mate. There was never any. No dilemmas like that. There's never any cash. So your first team was Peugeot.
Yeah, Peugeot. So I was, you know, it was a big, strong French team at the time, and well, same team as Guerro's first team actually, but you know, it wasn't called Peugeot then; it was called Garn. But actually, he might have been on French Le Jour. But anyway, yeah, Peugeot was the strongest team in France. That and Renault at the time, and you know, it was a real honour to be, you know, to sign a contract with them and ride my first 4 years as a pro. And you know, the first, you know, these teams there were a bit smaller. Like now, I think our team then was about 18 riders, whereas now all the Pro Tour teams are about 27, 28, 30 riders. But back then it was a bit of a shit fight on the team to get selected for the tour, because obviously they put the most suitable 8 riders or 9 riders on the tour team. So the first year I didn't score a ride in the tour. It was my second year. I did pretty well. Like first year I won a couple of small races. But yeah, got my second year as a pro and started winning, you know, pretty much from the beginning of the year. You know, won stage in Tour of Sicily and Paris-Nice, and you know, leading in the tour, they couldn't leave me out. So yeah, so that was my leading in the first tour.
And did your first tour that started with a time trial, did it not?
First tour started, yeah. Not every Tour de France starts with a time trial or prologue, but yeah, this particular one started in Nice. And
your time trial experience prior to that was?
First, well, yeah, I'd ridden the Peninsula 3-day tour. I'd ridden a few time trials. I actually won the Victorian Junior Championship by 1 second. But I had, you know, obviously nothing like the experience of riding with the pros over there, and I did reasonably well as an amateur leading into my year as a pro. But yeah, I think I finished in the top 20 in the prologue that year in Nice.
Okay, so you started off in your first Tour de France, and was that the one you got the yellow jersey in?
Yeah, first tour. So as I said before, it was a bit of a shit fight getting on the tour. All these French guys on the team wondering why this alien, you know, this refugee from, you know, they couldn't work out whether I was from Austria or Australia. but anyway, so there's no kangaroos in Austria. But yeah, so anyway, got on the team, did well in the prologue, and so this is 1981, and you get to day 5, first day in the mountains, and I'd never really ridden in the mountains before. I'd ridden the Dandenongs, you know, I'd ridden the Adelaide Hills.
Done a couple of Donahue.
No, I don't think it had been, it was before the Tour de Don or whatever it's called, so, back then it was all dirt roads up there, so might have done Arthur's Seat, but I never really, I was never really bigger than, might have been, yeah, it was pre-chairlift, I think, before it fell over, but I remember, so it was day 5, and my first Tour de France, and we're coming to the first mountains, and it's no secret.
And your job?
Yeah, my job was, we had a French guy on the team, Jean Rene Bernard. He's a great rider. He was critical in Bernard Hinault's win the year before. So Peugeot paid big dollars to have him on the team. So my job was to look after Jean Rene. So none of these guys spoke English.
How was your French?
My French was okay. It was a growing concern. The lack of my French. But so anyway, that was my mission. So I remember we're coming up. The pace is growing. The first mountain. We're approaching, and you just notice that the tension in the field. We're sort of going 40, 50, 60 k's an hour. I think shit, we must be coming close to that first mountain. I remember looking over the heads of all the riders and going to Jean Rene. I say, Jean Rene, you're following me, right? He said, yeah, we better move up. And I said, looking up the road, saying, I can't see any bloody mountain. What's the bloody rush, And this is before GPS, and now everybody's got all wired up.
Did you have radios?
No. And he says, no, Phil, no. This is all in French, of course. He goes, no. He said, you got to look up there. And I look up above the clouds, and poking out, you can see these peaks, and you can see these people lined up on the side of the road. I thought, gee, there must be only a couple of k's to go, I put my head down and bury myself to get Jean Rene up to the front of the field, Just about blew a bloody quad getting up there. But anyway, we get round the first corner and we're riding along, and I notice, there's bloody riders dropping back, and I'm trying to get round them, navigate through the field, and we get to the first top, the first pass there, it's called Aspan or something. And I thought, shit, that was a bloody lung buster, that one. And, but I noticed the field had already bloody cut in half. Now there was only like 100 guys left.
And was Jean Rene was still with you?
Fuck Jean Rene, I don't know. It's a bloody miracle I was still on my bike, It's a bit like, going up that first hill today. So we go down the other side and up the next hill, and once again the field's like cut in half, so now we've only got like 50 guys left, and whistle down, we've only got a couple of calls to go, and like you said, it was pre-radio, so the directors would come up beside the bunch, and the director was like pushing his way, you could tell, because every team had their own, ringtone, I guess, just honking on the horn, and drop back and see my director, Maurice, and Maurice says, Phil, Jean Rene. I said, yeah, he was here not long ago, He said, fucking hell, he's only 10 minutes down, he's in 2 groups back, He said, I can ease up, I'm bloody fucking dying up here. How far back is he? He says, it's like 5 minutes back, 2 groups back, and he says, it's no problem, I need a leak, I might have a slash over here, and by that time I'll be right, He says, no, shit, you're the last guy of a team, you stay up there, but you come and see me tonight. You come to my room, I said, sure, you were Catholic? No, I said, no, not really. But I said, no worries, I'll keep my eye out for him, maybe he's just having a bad moment. He says, no, you just stay up there, but you remember, So anyway, we got to the top of the second last climb, and once again the same thing. It feels cutting down every time. It's down. We did about 20 guys, and we go down and you know, had a bit of trouble, had a bee down my bloody shirt, you know. Like now you have those full bloody zips, you know, you get some pest down there, you bloody, you know, you show the pectin's all good, but back then you get something in there and there's no way it was going to come out, you know. You'd fart it out the next day. But anyway, you know, we get to the bottom and so we're coming up the last time, you know, a mountaintop finish out Planetay, you know, we go back there every few years. Planetay, mountaintop ski village at the top in the Pyrenees, and you know, I start recognising the guys around me. You know, guys I had on my bedroom wall back here in Kew, where I grew up. You know, Bernard Hinault, he wasn't quite there then, but yeah, he was there the call before. But you know, Bernard Hinault, of course, but Lucien Van Imp and Quicky on, all my heroes, you know, were around me. I felt shit, I wasn't worthy to even be there. But anyway, you know, so we start the last climb and boom, Lucien Van Imp, you know, good Belgian climber. Haven't been too many good Belgian climbers through the years, but he was a good climber. He won the KOM jersey a few times. He took off and, you know, they all looked to me. I wasn't going to chase, you know, I was like a novice and wouldn't have even been there. They didn't even know who I was. They probably thought I was one of those guys that just jumped out of the crowd, you know. You know, I took my bloody mask off, or at least I had my clothes on. Most of the ones these days, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, so he pissed off, and you know, there's only like 10 of us left at this stage. And I noticed on the climbs before that, you know, there's a bit of etiquette there. Guys are like taking a drink from the crowd. And, you know, having a swig and passing it on, and I saw somebody on the right-hand side, and they had a frosty Coke, and I thought, chilling, I'm going to score some creds here. So I rode over and grabbed it and popped it open, and I looked over to this guy next to me, and it was Bernard Hinault, and he looked horrible. He was frothing at the mouth. You know, there was no airbrush bloody effects here. This was the real deal. And he was like hero mine, and I just looked at him and thought, shit, he's worthy of the first sip. So I handed it over to him, and he looked at me like, you know, I was one of those guys running beside the road that jumped on his bike on the road up beside him, and he kind of looked at me and like hit that Coke out of my hand. I thought, shit, I bloody fought the crowd to get that bloody Coke. So that was my first brushing with Mr. Hinault, the Badger, and so anyway, you know, we rode on, and you know, Hinault, Mr. Coke, he tried to, you know, accelerate a couple of times, and I struggled back up to him, and you know, I tried right up to him, next to him, and you know, pushed my hero into the fence a little bit to try and catch a breather.
Did you have your poker face on?
Like, I didn't know what any poker face was, you know. I was an Aussie, and maybe that's why I bloody, you know, did as well as I did back then. I didn't know anything about tradition or anything, so stuffed those guys. So in the end, there was like Lucien Van Imp, you know, the guy that they used to say had angel wings on his ankles. He was off the road. You know, there's no way that we were going to catch him. And then there was Bernard and I, and everybody else was dropped. And so because we'd done my team, the Peugeot team, about the only time we did something well was the day before, you know, the team time trial, and we did very well, finishing in Carcassonne. And so that gave me enough time to get the yellow jersey.
Did you beat Hinault over the line?
I didn't beat Hinault over the line. He beat me actually. So I actually got third in the stage, but we kicked their ass. You know, the Peugeot team beat the Renault team the day before. But the funny thing was, the next day, okay, I mean, I was just I'd done okay that day, but you know, I was just a shit kicker from Hawthorn. But the next day, we had a
hang on, just rewind a little bit. So you take the yellow jersey.
Yeah, I take the.
So the shit hits the fan.
Well, yeah, I get the yellow jersey. Of course, nobody outside of Europe had ever got the yellow jersey before, so you know, it was like a big deal. And they get me up, you know, they give you the flowers and stuff. The podium girls weren't what they are today, you know. So that was a pretty brief sort of encounter. And then before you go to doping control, you go up onto. You got to do this TV show, you know, like a after the game sort of show, panel thing, you know, which is live televised. And they thought it was fantastic, you know. They had this guy, and from, you know, they still couldn't work out whether it was Austria or Australia. You know, they put me in the hot seat and they're interviewing me and they were sort of fantastic and you know, that they said, Australia, you know, what happens in Australia, you know? I say, oh, cricket and football, and while I was saying that, you know, somebody came out with a map of the world because they weren't quite sure where Australia was. You know, France, of course, was huge, like in the middle of the map, took up like 50% of the globe. And Australia was down here like a little Tasmania thing, right over in the corner, you know. And it was funny. I mean, I was struggling with my French and they were struggling with the English, but it was very, very, very funny.
And is that where you get your nickname?
Skippy, yes, that's right. Yes, it's quite embarrassing, but the only thing they knew about Australia, they televised, it was black and white back then, was Skippy. You guys used to get that program, Skippy, the bush kangaroo. And that's right, so that was the only thing they knew about Australia. You know, they didn't know about politics, or they didn't know where it was, or, you know, they just knew there was a lot of desert, and maybe tennis and some good, you know, some good swimmers maybe, but they didn't know anything about cycling. And yes, they called me Skippy. They call me that name.
They still call you that?
They still, yeah, like, you know, obviously I go over there every year with different groups, and yeah, people run out of the crowd. Obviously, it's not the young people that used to run after me, but you always get these people that come up, you know, like, you know, obviously my age, but, you know, in their 50s and 60s, and you see them pushing their grandkids forward, and, oh, he just wants an autograph, you know. Silly.
They probably got you on their bedroom wall.
Maybe the grandparents do, yes. But anyway, I was going to say, the next day, okay, I got the yellow jersey, so the next day I start the race, and it's a time trial, starts in Po, and it's a big loop. I don't know, it's not long, it's like 35 kilometre time trial, which is short in that era, because we used to have 80k, 90k individual time trials, which is crazy. But the next day was a time trial, and I'm last off down the ramp. You know, I don't think I'd ever ridden down one of those ramps before. Here I am, this bloody thing in the tour, in the yellow jersey, chasing, you know, all my heroes. And like I said before, talking, you know, the prologue, that was my first European time trial. This is my second one, but I'd done very well in the Peninsula 3-day. I had this jersey that everybody's making a really big deal about. So, you know, I can do this. I feel very Olympic. And as long as I don't run off the side of that ramp, I'll be good. But anyway, you know, I rode, and people talk about the powers that the yellow jersey gives you. You know, suddenly you're sort of pushed up onto this bloody podium, or, you know, you seem to be sort of the icon of the sport for at least, you know, 15 seconds. And I came in third in my first, well, second, after the prologue time trial. So there you go, and that's the power that.
And was that enough to keep the yellow jersey?
No, I was flipped to second, and so for the next, you know, couple of weeks I was chasing Bernard Hinault all over, and by the end of the tour, you know, that was in the Pyrenees, we went all around France and had to go through the Alps, and I slipped down to 10th. So that's my first tour.
10th in first. And how many tours did you run?
13 tours, finishing every one. So yeah, it was good.
Tough as a Shed Road tour?
We didn't have bloody shitty roads like this. But we didn't have equipment, you know, like the equipment, like I punched it today, but you know, we're talking today a little bit about the roads that I used to train on. And I used to live up this way, and we used to get up to Tolmy there, and that used to be dirt. We used to ride from this side because I used to live on this side of the hills. And I used to turn around at the top there because it was dirt over the top. And back then we all used to use race ball singles, what you call them, tubulars. And yeah, they didn't take to the dirt very well, so we never rode on the dirt. But now that the equipment's so good, you know, the guys still race on singles, but you know, the gear that we use now, like, you know, tyres or the Schwalbes or whatever they are, they're fantastic, you know. Like now I'm riding 28, so surprised I even punched it today, but you know, the equipment's so good.
And what was your toughest race? Like, does anything stand out in your memory as being just a tough event?
The toughest, you know, if you're ill or if you've got an injury, that's you know, you can be riding the easiest race and have an injury, it can be your hardest, you know, and you know, you can be ill where you've got a diarrhea problem, or you've got a you're vomiting or something like that. It's not very nice. But there was a tour, like a third Tour de France. I was coming down a mountain, and by this time, my first tour, I had that flash in the pan, the yellow jersey on day 5, and ended up, scraped in a top 10 placing. The next year on day 2, got the yellow jersey again, held it for 10 days. Went all down France, came 5th. So by the time I got my third tour, I was one of the favourites. By that time they'd figured out I was from Australia, rather than Austria. And yeah, so we're coming down into Grenoble. I was a reasonable descender, one of the better descenders in the bunch. So, I was watching, for something happening on the downhill to try and take advantage of. I wasn't going to be the first to attack, but sure enough, Michaud, another very talented descender, went off, and I chased him down, and one other rider, so the 3 of us in the front, and we're maybe 15-20 seconds in front of the bunch. And we're coming off the Vercors Plateau, which is supposed to be 1,500 metres above Grenoble. You can see the city down there. Grenoble's quite a big town, sort of industrial town. They're at the Winter Olympics there a few times, and you can see the city. And I hadn't climbed up this descent that we're going down, and I knew it was a good road, quite fast, big sweeping corners, good surface. And we're taking some risks because the bunch is chasing at 20 seconds, and we're going pretty hard. And we're coming into a left turn, and we're really on the limit. And I blew a front tyre, a bit like Andy did actually. Blew a front tyre. We're going considerably faster, but I held it upright as long as I could. But we were, there was a barrier, like an arco barrier coming up here pretty quick, and I knew that I wasn't scrubbing off the speed that was needed to stop, and hit the barrier. Went over the barrier, hit a tree, a big sort of oak tree, and hit it pretty hard, just like wrapped around it, and slid down the tree. It was a bit like one of those animated cartoons, when the road runner's been chased by the whatever it is there, coyote. Hit the tree, slid down. Come back up onto the road, climb back over the barrier. My bike's just there in a heap, So I take the front wheel out. The forks are okay. I'm holding the wheel up like this because the bunch is chasing. The bunch is approaching, and I know my team car's pretty close to the front, so I'm holding the front wheel up like this. And just as I'm standing there, before the bunch comes around the corner, I slip. We're using these bloody nylon sportive shoes, and I slip on my bloody my shoe, and I fall on my ass, and I hit my coccyx. God damn, that hurt. I don't know if anybody's ever taken a hit on that, so somebody kicks you up the butt or something. But anyway, drop this wheel. I'm holding this wheel. Drop the wheel. So the wheel hits the road and then starts getting some momentum. Down the road, it's Grenoble bound, okay? It wasn't going to catch the 2 guys I was with, but it was going that way. And then the bunch comes round the corner, and there's this huge crash. I see my wheel sort of get bounced up like this and come down again, and another half dozen guys crash, and they're screaming and yelling going on, and the car screams up and goes, "Where's your wheel?" And goes, "See that pile over there?" It's there. Forget the wheel. Give me another one, So I sort of chase. Chase and get back to the tail end, it's all strung out because, they're chasing me or who they thought. and there's kind of guys dodging through, bikes and bits and pieces, and eventually I get to the back of the bunch, and these guys going, "What the hell happened back there? Christ, there's something in the middle of the bunch, and guys are going everywhere." I was sort of going, "I don't know." We've got all this blood on me, and I'm sort of winded, we never caught the 2 guys in front because they were going for it. And I get back to the car. This is a long answer to your question about a difficult race. I get back to the car, push myself up into the hood of the car after the line, when I'm back at the car, and I just fall in a heap of bloody pain from my chest, and so we're hugging that bloody tree. And so they rushed me off to the hospital, and they finally broke my sternum, The sternum is mostly sort of cartilage, but a lot of nerves and, if you think ribs are bad.
That's right, if you don't breathe.
Yeah, that's right. I've still got 4 or 5 days to go. I lost a few places. I think the next day was a time trial, a mountain time trial. So, there's no place to hide and something like that. And then, so I lost a bit of time there, and then we ended up the Wednesday day after that. It's pretty tough. I mean, it's still finished. I think I finished 9th that year. I had a bit of time on my sleeve, but that was tough. And you talk about tough times in a ride, and I think that would possibly be pretty tough. Had some good guys helping me.
The Italians wouldn't think that is would have pulled out.
Well, mate, if they would pull out today, hear that rain out there, that'd be they'd be already on the bus home.
And did you have any other big stacks, like any major crashes or big injuries, or were you a bit lucky?
Well, I never broke any limbs. I don't, but you talk about small injuries, kneecap, finger, elbow, a few things like that. But you don't think about crashing. Like elite sports people don't think about it. That's a little bit the wire up there.
And did you get back to the team manager's room?
Back to Maurice's room. No, he was very happy. He was happy. They'd won the Peugeot team had won the Tour de France with Pepinay a few years prior, so it was a big deal for them to get the yellow jersey. So he was happy, and took a couple of days before John Rene came up and congratulated me for a good ride. But he had a bad year, and so I picked it up.
And were you with Peugeot next year?
I was with Peugeot for 4 years. So 3 more tours.
With Jean Rene?
With Jean Rene, that's right. Yes.
Was that interesting times?
Yeah, look, Jean Rene's a great mate now. He runs. He's a director of he was director of Eurocar. Yeah, he's on another team he has over there. So he's he's a nice guy, and every year we catch up and have a beer. It's good.